One's ready. Go!
Hey everybody, before we hop into this next episode with TSgt Kaleb Schmidt, who is a military training instructor, you know, the DIs with the Smokey the Bear hat, head on over to drinkhoist.com. They've got a new flavor out called 5-Star Punch. It's really, really good. There's all kinds of patriotism, red, white, and blue, stars and everything all over the bottle. They just released it. And you can go over to drinkhoist.com, use the promo code ONESREADY, and then a portion of their proceeds are going to go to Folds of Honor, which is a charitable organization helping out our veteran community. Man, the taste is fantastic. You can go over to drinkhoist.com, use the promo code ONESREADY, let them know that we sent you, but at the same time, you don't have to go that route if you don't want to. If you can go to an HEB, a Safeway, a Kroger, a Smith's, whatever, and they have it there, or they should have it there. And if they're not, they're messed up. But yeah, go check it out. Tastes really good. IV level hydration. I know you guys like to hear that. And then now we'll head on over to the episode where we talk with Kaleb Schmidt, who's an active duty MTI or a military training instructor, which is for everybody else is a drill instructor at our Air Force basic training. And I'll tell you what, the dude's motivating as hell. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you do as well. I think, you know, if you're a parent or a family member, then you will see that, like, as you are entrusting your family member with us, I think they'll be in good hands. All right, enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. You're in the team room. I have TSgt Kaleb Schmidt with me. Thanks for joining us, dude. I really appreciate you taking the time out. I know it's an early morning for you, but I'm sure you already got your PT in.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Beautiful day. It's nice and chilly.
That's right. Well, that's the thing about Texas and San Antonio in particular is you never know what you're going to get. You could be wearing, you know, a parka one day, and then the very next day you're in a tank top kind of thing.
It's crazy. It was I want to say 85 last week, and we hit 28 last night. So
that's insane.
Yeah.
Well,
we get our 2 days of winter, and then that's it.
Yeah. Well, what's more insane is for the folks that never go to, you know, San Antonio, and then all of a sudden they find themselves the night before loading up on a bus or a plane and arriving in San Antonio at the great Lackland Air Force Base for basic military training.
Oh yeah,
so before
Air Force.
That's right. So for everybody out there, Kaleb is a MTI, which is a military training instructor. But before we hop into the BMT stuff, give us a little bit of background on you. Like, what did you, because for a lot of people that probably don't know this, is that, you know, you actually had a different job, a different Air Force specialty code. You were doing something else before you volunteered to become an MTI. So what were you doing beforehand, and what made you join the Air Force?
So I am a weather troop by trade. So one whiskey. I spent when it came to joining the Air Force, I wasn't, you know, super hua, serve the nation, anything like that. I'm from Texas, so they have what's called the Hazelwood Act, and it's something where your dependents, your children, those kinds of things get free in-state tuition.
Nice.
I don't even have kids, but it was, you know, the possibility, because I joined at 19. I was a young kid. But that was a big driving force, or factor rather, for that. And then once I joined, I signed for weather. I wasn't smart for doing that. But okay. It's not a bad job. It's just very drastic in experience for some folks. So I spent 2 years at Kadena Air Base in Okinawa.
Nice.
Beautiful island. Very busy job. I did the math at one point as an airman. I was making, excuse me, about 87 cents an hour. So, you know, not the best because we were working so much. I had aspirations of crossing into Saudi, and then it stopped existing. So those aspirations died with that.
That'll happen.
Yeah. And then I got stationed at U.S. Army Garrison Humphreys for 4 years, where I supported the 2nd Infantry Division, 2nd Combat Aviation Brigade. It's a little bit different than most Air Force experiences for folks, because we just get, hey, congratulations, you're now attached to these Army units, support them, because they don't have weather people. So it's us. Some folks don't take too kindly to that because they joined the Air Force to join the Air Force.
Not the Army.
Yeah, I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. I get to go camping. It sucks, but I still get to go camping, and I get to, shoot the breeze with all these folks, learn about them. You get the occasional PFC, which is a private first class for folks who don't know Army ranks. And they'll be like, Sergeant or SWO is what they call a staff weather officer. You have it so good. You're in the Air Force. And then we go to the tent and I sleep next to them. So I'm like, I guess, yeah, sure.
Sure, man. I get paid the same,
Yeah, yeah.
E6 is an E6, E4 is an E4. Like,
Yeah, they just see Air Force and they're like, yeah, you've somewhere there's like, a door, you open it and there's this mystical land where only Air Force people are invited.
yeah, it's called the hotels.
Yeah.
Is where we usually stay.
Yeah. But you learn all these, soldiering skills, radio programming, shoot, move, communicate, your basic soldier. In order to be attached to them, you use mostly none of them aside from the firearms training. Because there's comm guys who program your radios, the motor pool folks take care of your Humvees. We just make sure they're good. But got to that for 4 years. And then after that, I went to Kunsan Air Base, which is like the most Air Force assignment, super lax, everything like that. So my brain was just like freaking out.
Everybody else that you're working with is like, hey, dude, like, just
relax.
a little bit.
Yeah, what is wrong
like,
with
you're
you?
really high strung, man.
Yeah. And I was, to be honest, I was planning on getting out. Because, I had done my 8 years. I was like, hey, I got my Air Force goal. I made staff sergeant in 4 years. I'm good to go. Everything's, hunky-dory, everything like that. I can go to school. I'm still young. Because I was 25, 26 at the time. I can call it quits here. I did what I wanted to do. And then I had 2 flight chiefs at the time because one was leaving and one had come in because it's a 1-year tour at Kunsan. And they sat me down. They're like, hey, we think you'd be a good fit to be an MTI. You're on the list for DSD. Why not give it a try? And I was like, what? That actually does sound like it would be a really fulfilling job. It is brutal, but
I'll say you guys, we'll get to it, but man, you guys work your ass off.
Yeah. So I put my name on it, went through all of the hoops, I guess, because there's multiple interviews, IQ tests, there's a psychological evaluation to make sure you're not going to abuse the trainees, maltreat them, those kinds of things, and got picked up for it. And then boom, re-enlisted, and here I am.
Man, yeah. You spent a lot of time over in the Pacific. That's awesome.
I've only been in the Pacific aside from BMT. I loved it.
Yeah. I don't know anybody who's been upset about it. I do notice a trend, and I don't know if I don't think it's by design or anything like that. I just think it's luck of the draw, but you do seem to see people that are like the ones that just kind of continue being overseas. They either kind of stick with Europe or they stick with the Pacific. There's not much, there is some crossover, people that have gone to both, but there's definitely like, okay, well, I'm going to go from Mildenhall to, Ramstein or, Kunsan to Kadena to Yokota to, so it's a weird thing, but it's cool because, man, you get a chance to experience all those different cultures, all those beautiful islands,
Yeah.
Like, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I had a previous supervisor. He's a master sergeant. I think he's about to retire. His one stateside assignment was Barksdale, and it was his first assignment.
Oh, man.
And then he spent the majority of his career in the Pacific. I think the closest he got to the States was Alaska, which is PACAF,
Yeah, I mean,
it's OCONUS.
It's considered an overseas.
And now he's at Capone, which is like a little annex at Ramstein.
Yep,
and,
I've been to Capone a couple times.
Yeah, and he's like, dude, it's awesome. And I was like, yeah, you've never been anywhere that's not good except for Barksdale. Everywhere went up.
Yeah. Well, so we used a couple acronyms in there. The biggest one that we've used that we've probably never used on this podcast before is DSD. So it stands for Developmental Special Duty, and that is not just for MTIs or anything like that, but it's for recruiters. It's for man, I'm
There
only
are
thinking of 2 right now.
several. There are several. I can name a few, but I do not know all of them because there are so many.
Oh,
Uh,
Airman Dorm Leader, professional military education
yep.
instructor. So, your Airman Leadership School, your non-commissioned officer academy, senior non-commissioned officer academy, first sergeant, and military training leader. So those are
There's
the
there's also, I think it's ROTC. They have folks, so like ROTC detachments, um, get like 1 or 2. Those are pretty rare.
yeah. It's and what's really bad is I should know every single one of those, but
It's fine. It's fine.
yeah. We don't like from the organization that I'm at or that I'm soon leaving. There's not very many volunteers for it because
Yeah.
DSD is a volunteer thing. Now, what happens is, you come out on a list if you're vulnerable for it. You come out on a list, and then you can get vectored, to your name's going to come on a list whether you have an assignment or not. So a lot of times you're going to have an assignment already, and you're not going to get re-vectored. It's just, hey, I'm not vectoring for this person. Other people, though, like yourself, want to go and be an MTI or military training instructor. So, like, what is it about that MTI, the aspects of being an MTI that made you want to join?
So truthfully, the mentor side of it, because I mean, from our short conversation so far, I'm not, a very kind of person. Um, it's the mentorship side. I hate yelling, but it's a part of the job. Um, but getting, 50, 54, 52, 48, random people, putting them through 7.5 weeks of, mostly structured chaos. And then by the end, you get 52 airmen who are now disciplined, able to follow orders, able to critically think. You give them a task, this is what I need, and then they get the desired outcome. It's not like when I was a trainee where it's like, this is what you will do, this is what we expect, this is how it is going to be done. It is more critical thought within it. But just the growth within that. Like I'm on my sixth cycle, fifth or sixth cycle, and just seeing the growth of what you pour into it and what they produce.
That's got to be the magical side of it. And I can totally relate to what you're talking about because whenever you are instructing somebody, and you kind of they're not getting it, or maybe it's just such a nascent idea that they don't understand the concept of it, and you can kind of see that when they turn the corner and just you're like, holy cow, this is amazing to watch you just kind of get it then at that point, and you get to see it 50 people at a time.
Yeah,
Everybody probably hits it at different points during that BMT. Some people get a little bit later. I'm probably that dude that got a little bit later, but um, it's I can see how that is a big draw for you and something that really is rewarding for you.
absolutely. Because at the end of the day, we tell the trainees this as well. Like we are your first supervisor. At the end of the day, I need to get you to the standard. I'm not going to be nice about it. I truthfully, I'm not. I need to get you to the standard. But I am your first supervisor. I'm here to take care of you. If you're having issues, feel free to talk to me. The hat comes off, even if we're indoors, the proverbial hat.
Yeah.
Like I'm an NCO first, not an MTI. I was an NCO for years before I became an MTI. Like my job is to take care of my airmen so they can get the mission done. And the mission here is to make you an airman.
Man, I think that's pretty awesome because you don't, at least from my point of view, you don't see that much and you don't hear that much. Is that just you, or is that kind of the way the MTI community feels as well?
It is how we are supposed to be. I'll say that.
I know that everybody's not created equal. Like I get it, but
So within we have a lesson called the like first week briefing for when they go into first week. That is one thing where it explicitly says, "I am your first supervisor in the Air Force." So we have to show them what a supervisor is. And I've had good supervisors, I've had terrible supervisors. You want to be the good one. You want them at their first base to think, "Wow, my supervisor needs to improve to get on that level." I feel like they could improve to take better care of me as an airman, kind of thing.
yeah. And I'll say it so that you don't have to. Taking care of you does not always mean, being the coach and like, all right, come here, let me talk to you. Sometimes it's getting in your ass and freaking telling you how it needs to be and what it needs to be and giving you some of that tough love, not just always babying you.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes, you got to light the fire under the butts, right?
Yeah,
You're not
exactly.
always going to meet the expectation, and I'm not going to say, guys, maybe next time. No,
Yeah.
we're getting the training. Like,
You'll
we're
get it
fixing
next
it.
time. Because you guys pack a lot into what is it now? Because I know it changes and it fluctuates. How long is BMT now?
So we're at 7.5 weeks, and
Seven and a half weeks.
I think
So
it's
you're
been that way
cramming.
for a few years.
Yeah. Well, you hear about it, and then obviously, there's changes come and go, right? So, but you guys are cramming a lot of stuff into that because you got to think about all the initial processing into the Air Force, issuing of uniforms, training ranks, training um, command relationship, like all of that stuff, and then breaking down barriers and years of you know antisocial, like whatever you want to call it, to get the product that the Air Force and the nation needs. You're doing a lot in that 7.5 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, a lot of it does boil down to just like time training. So roughly 16 hours a day, we are doing something productive. Um, it's something as minute as making a bed, right? 45 degrees, everyone's seen hospital corners. You can Google hospital corners, anything like that. I've never seen a hospital that does hospital corners. So when I came
No.
to BMT, I was like, what is this? But it's making a bed. Can you make that bed alone and get it pristine? Probably. But wouldn't it be more efficient to do it as a pair or maybe three people? So
Yep.
it's, hey, we need you to meet this standard. Why not work as a small team? And in those moments, figure out who these people are. You live next to them. Uh, a lot of it is squeezing as much into such a small time frame. Like I'd never learned such, I'll say, pristine time management as when I became an instructor. Because it's like, hey,
Oh, that.
we have 200 things to get done, and we have 3 hours. What are you gonna do? And then it's like, I'm gonna think about it for 3 minutes and waste 3 precious minutes of time, and then make a decision. So I just wasted 3 minutes, so I still have 200 things and an hour 57. So you have so much that we have to squeeze in, and a lot of time you'll see instructors. I'm drinking a little energy drink right here. We're just cracked out all the time on caffeine.
Not actual crack, just cracked out on caffeine. All right.
For the record.
You guys love your monster, your ghost, your bucked up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We love caffeine, especially on the line, because you're just moving, moving, moving. Hey, what do we need to get done? What do we need to fix? Is there anything to fix? What's wrong with
Yeah.
this? How can we fix this? And you're just constantly moving. And especially, I've talked about teamwork a little bit. So you have somebody who's also an instructor across the hall. So you're working with them as well. So if
And they
it's
have their
somebody,
own 50 people.
correct. The way forward, the way that it currently is integration of flights. So it'll be half of my dorm is my flight, half of my dorm is the person who's across the hall's flight, and it'll be the same for them.
Okay.
So anything in terms of dorm is taught, of course, as a dorm. But flight things such as drill, um, weapons mechanics, those kinds of things, reporting procedures, learning rank structure, like you had previously mentioned, will generally be as flight. So
Okay.
a lot of the time you want to be on the same page, so that way there's not an issue of I'm in my dorm, I ask this trainee something and they look at me, like I'm a ghost, because they're already looking at me like they're scared, and I'm just like, hey, I'm just asking you a question right now. I haven't even started yelling. So a
That's the
lot of that,
crazy part about it. You walk around a corner and they're just, oh God.
yeah, I think a lot of it, especially when it comes to walking around, it's the big hat, right? It's the intimidation
Smoky hat.
factor with it. Yeah, I don't. I personally, it's headgear.
Yeah.
It's no different than a patrol cap. It's just a different kind of headgear. It just protects my skin from the sun for the most part. You tilt it and you get the back of the head, but it'll buff, right?
Well, it's more useful than a beret, to be honest. A beret doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
But
fair enough.
yeah, so all right. So you had already kind of before we started recording, you had kind of gone into it. So you get these folks that come, they've just left their house, they loaded up a bus, loaded up a plane, and they show up to you guys. Like, what is that like for you guys? And then what is that like for the recruits?
So starting with them, I think a lot of it, everyone kind of has their own expectation. When I was a trainee, I had my own expectation, and I don't know if they did the videos, like the little trainee videos or whatever, the BMT graduation week
I
videos
don't
when you went
remember.
through. Fair
I
enough.
don't remember. That was 99.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But I remember seeing one of my friends had the video, and I was in during the pickup night because we were the first flight in. And like you could see it on my face that my expectation was not correct. And even now, because as I said before we had started recording, there's a specific squadron that picks them up. But when I trained up, I got to go there for part of the training.
Oh,
But you
nice.
see, like the wide eyes, I am stressed out right now, the involuntary shaking kind of thing, like the adrenaline is pumping, whether they want to recognize it or, oh, BM2 was easy, all this stuff's like, dude, I saw you pick up. I didn't forget. Um, so a lot of people have this expectation of what it's going to be. And I will say 90% are wrong. And then the other 10% were just prepared better. Um, for us, a lot of it, especially early, is setting the tone kind of thing. Like, these are my expectations. This is what is going to occur. The first thing that they get taught is, position of attention and parade rest. So anytime I'm going to give you the commands flight, attention hut, or flight attention, if we're using normal speak. When I say flight, you're going to go to what's called parade rest, and you run through it real quick. You give them a cliff notes lesson. And then you're going to snap to attention. What that entails, you're going to cup your hands. Your thumbs are going to be along the seams of your trousers, knuckles along your pants. Your heels are going to be together, feet form a 45. You're going to stand straight up, shoulders back, chest, like you're lightning round through it. And, with them, they can't hear anything. They're too, oh
No,
my, what have I done?
you're
Um,
saying it so fast.
well, a lot of the time you're not. I'm just trying to go through it so that way we're not
Right,
burning.
right.
But it's one of those things where you're going through it and it's like, you're going to use 6 words to unlock any conversation with any permanent party personnel. It's going to be, sir or ma'am, trainee, my last name, reports as ordered. Once you're acknowledged, you will give that reporting statement and then we'll have our conversation. And that's a big thing early because you're telling these, independent people who, don't want to listen to authority. I was the same, so I'm not going to say, oh, it's the new generation. I was the
And race
same.
against the machine, man.
Yeah, I was the same. So I'm all these young folk. No, I was the same. But you're telling them this, and they're either they don't pay attention or they don't want to follow it because they want to, stick it to the man. And you blow them up for it, and now they're actually like stressing out about it. But it's setting the tone because if you let the small things slide, then the big things slide, and then something else slides, and the next thing you know, somebody doesn't do their job in the Air Force, somebody else dies for it. So it's as goofy as it sounds. It's the minutia that build up to the large tasks.
No, that makes sense. And like one thing that I remember, and this is going to flow into a secondary question, but one thing that I remember is the amount of time that you're on your feet just standing. Like
Oh yeah.
and I was not prepared for that. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't used to it. So time on feet definitely was like and I was a active person beforehand, but sometimes just standing it, and not being actively moving,
Yep.
it's not so like how much time do you think time on feet actually is a thing for you guys right now or for new recruits?
So I think it depends on the day. So day to day it varies
Okay.
greatly because you'll have days where you're in class all day, and honestly, I think that's worse because those classes are not the most entertaining things. You're not going to be able to pull out your phone and text or Instagram or what have you. So you got to lock in on whatever boring topic they're talking about. The most I've seen in terms of time on feet, accounting for drill lessons. Hey, we got to march across the base for this, important appointment. We got to do something else. We got to do this, that. I would say up to like 10 hours, which
Of
is a
standing.
long time. Yeah, standing.
Yeah.
Um, I will say, because you said you were pretty active, the biggest thing I tell people, if they have family members who are considering joining, have somebody, do a hard day of work, hard day of labor, those kinds of things, multiple days in a row, and then take their PT test because you're not going to be fresh. Because
No.
like a lot of these kids are like, well, sir, I could do it when I'm fresh, and it's like, wow, great. Are you feeling fresh right now? No, sir. It's like, well, good luck. Still got to do the
Yeah.
test. Still got to pass. Um, Biggest thing is get time on feet for folks.
Yeah.
Whether it's walk your dog, enjoy the sun because you're going to be in the sun a bunch. Um, but
Especially
get time
depending
on
on the time of year you go to Lackland.
it's going to be warm either way. Sometimes we'll
Yeah.
get nice cool days like this though. But yeah, up to 10 hours. And a lot of folks underestimate how much you're walking around.
Yeah.
I have a little Garmin. On average, I'm somewhere in the 20 to 30,000 steps if I am not running.
Are
Like
you kidding me?
seriously.
That's nuts.
And
Like, I mean, it's awesome. Like, I love it. Like, everybody should be getting that much. Like, it's fantastic. But
yeah,
I would, you know, you kind of see those numbers if you go out for a long run and then you have a day of additional walking or something like that. You usually don't see that for the average person, unfortunately, isn't breaking 10,000
no,
steps a day.
no. And it's one of those things where if you're not used to boots either,
Yeah.
it's not gonna be a good time. Um, but yeah, roughly 20 to 30,000, and especially um, when we're in the dorm all day, that's honestly when I get higher up because I'm just circling the bays. So if
Oh,
they're
okay.
working on, the recruit living areas, so wall lockers, beds, those kinds of things, I'm moving around. No, this is wrong. This is how we can fix it. Hey, his socks are wrong. Help him fix them. Work together on this. Get better tension on it. This is why it's messed up. So you're just circling around. This is wrong. We need to fix it. This can be rolled tighter. This bed can be made, tighter. That hospital corner isn't 45 degrees. All this stuff, and you're just circling, circling, circling. Then when they fix it, check again. So it's always follow up, follow up, follow up.
Dude, that's a lot. And you alluded to it. You walk everywhere. There's no at least I don't remember ever getting on a bus other than arriving and then leaving. Like I think we walked everywhere.
So there are some appointments that are by bus. So if you
Okay.
go to like the New Wilford Hall, that's by bus. Um, Cadam,
Which for
Seaburn.
everybody that's the hospital.
Oh yes, sorry. Cadam or Combat Arms. They call it tactics and maintenance. I remember it being training and maintenance, where you fire the M4s with the red hats, the security forces red hats, and then Seaburn or chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, where you get to wear your JS list or your MOP 4, the
Yeah.
chem suits. Those are by bus because those are not on main Lackland.
Okay.
It'd be kind of harsh if we made them march all the way over there.
That'd be a little bit rough. Yeah. Um, all right. So, well, in let me base this real quick. Are you are you on your flight or your I guess it would be flight or your training squadron? Do you guys have the special warfare kind of flight, or is that somewhere else?
So we do not. We
Okay.
used to, and I think they cycle them around every few years or every year or
Okay.
so. Um, so I have friends who are instructors at my current squadron who had special warfare flights, but the closest we get is we'll get like SEER folks, and I think we get EOD occasionally, but I don't know if
Okay.
they're classified as special warfare still.
I don't
Uh,
classify them as special warfare.
Fair enough.
However, Air Force recruiting feels like they need to classify them the same, which I don't know why, because they're not hurting on recruiting. But
Yeah, fair
that's
enough.
that's a whole nother thing that you don't want any part of.
No.
That is me talking. Um, so, like, then how much time do recruits get to train, and do you know for the special warfare guys how much time they get to train while they're in basic training?
So in terms of you're talking about extra PT time.
Yeah, PT time. Like
Uh,
what's for a normal flight? how much PT time do they get? And then for the special warfare, do you know how much extra PT time they get?
So for a standard flight, depending on the schedule, so summer schedule, you'll PT in the morning. Winter schedule, you'll PT in the afternoon because it's too cold in the morning or whatever. Just wear clothes. But PT will range in time depending on what you're doing. And you can actually, for the normal recruit folks, if you go to the Aim High app, which is accessible to anybody on whatever platform you use, you can actually see all of the PT cards that we use. And they have demonstrations of the exercises. I recommend
Oh,
doing
nice.
that because you will get yelled at if you screw them up. And it will not be fun for you. But PT for standard recruits, it's anywhere from 30 to 50 minutes depending on what we're doing, because you factor in warm-ups, which take about 10 minutes, and cooldowns, which take another 10 minutes. It could be like an aerobic run, which is about 24 minutes for us. So you can get, realistically, if you're a fast runner, 3.5, 4 miles. If you're a slower runner, 2 and some change. But time on feet's time on feet. We need it.
Yeah.
They have what's called the cardio interval training. So think Tabata sets. And you do 20-10 for the first few weeks, and then it jumps to 30-10 for the later weeks of training. And it's just to get the heart rate going without beating the joints up.
Yeah.
So you're just going up and down, different exercises. You'll have jumping jacks, butt kicks, running in place, all this different stuff. Frog jumps, which, you touch the ground, then you jump to the sky and reach up. All this different stuff. It's honestly great. And you don't get as many shin splints as when I was a trainee.
Yeah.
So I think it's a net positive. I don't, personal opinion, doesn't represent BMT, all that stuff. Doesn't represent the Air Force. I don't like it because I would rather just do strength and run.
Yeah.
But for folks who are, hitting the couch to BMT program, it definitely saves their shins long term.
And that's really what it's designed for, because the Air Force has had to adjust the way that it did basic training, and it's not just the Air Force. Like the Army and Navy are the same exact way, in terms of the couch to soldier or something like that is, because if not, yeah, medical Wilford Hall would be dealing with shin
Yeah,
splints on a
you just
consistent
break
basis,
people.
especially with you're used to walking 3,000 feet a day or 3,000 steps a day to now 20 to 30,000 steps a day plus running in that. Like,
you're just, a lot of people, they'll come, sir, I think I need to see the athletic trainers. It's like, what's going on? It's like my shins hurt, and I'm like, point. And then they'll point to like the calf muscle, and I'm like, no, that's your muscle. Like, does it hurt on the bone? And then they're like, no, sir. And I'm like, all right, we'll send you to the AT, but most likely it's muscular. You're sore. Congratulations.
it's called the store. It's lactic acid.
But so they have the two kinds of CIT, and then they have two kinds of strength days, which is going to be your standard calisthenics. We start with pull-ups, get into sit-ups, push-ups, bunch. It hits full body. And then it ends either A or B day for the strength with pyramid reps. For the strength A, it's pyramid push-ups, which I'm sure you're used to, because those were the thing. I love pyramid push-ups. They're horrible. That's why I love them. You're just there suffering the whole time. I got a bum shoulder, so it's even worse. Or it's squat holds and then reverse lunges, which for some reason, whenever we do those, I've run the day prior, or I've done leg day. So I'm just like, all right, poor planning on my end, but hey, we're here for it. And then for the special warfare folks, I do not know the exact amount, but for my fellow instructors who had special warfare flights, from what they were saying, it was like a 0-4 wake up call. So about at the time, hour 45 early. And they would be working out for roughly 2.5 hours. So
okay, dude, I gotta be honest. That's more than I expected in terms of extra PT time.
Yeah. So they get sufficient time. Like I could be wrong now, so please don't, quote that as gospel and, send it into the wind. Sergeant Schmidt said this, but from what my previous trainer, when I was a student instructor, he had a few special warfare flights, and he was like, yeah, I would wake them up at 04, get them moving, get them out, get them to PT, and then they wouldn't be done until, he said, roughly 7.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. No kidding, I wasn't expecting that. I was just expecting a couple times a week, like a little bit extra. That's pretty good. So there's really, I don't want to say there's no excuse for having a lack of gains or an atrophy of ability, because it's not like they're just going to the track. They're doing other things, and it's that's shit. That's really good.
So as far as I know, they're setting them up for success. It's not like how it was when I was a trainee coming through, and I had friends who were, going through Indoc, I think it still was at the time,
Yep, at the
2016.
time. I don't know when you came in. What year did you come in?
2016.
2016. So PJs were still going to NDOC at the
Okay.
time. CCT and SR, which didn't exist at the time,
Yeah.
were doing their own thing.
Yeah, but I remember it was just like, hey, go to PT, and then I think on Saturdays they got to swim, and that was about it. So
Eh,
you're like, I knew several people who went to BMT, myself included. I wasn't, going through any pipeline or anything after that, but went through BMT and got in worse shape. And it was
yeah, well,
like,
that's what I experienced.
yeah, it was
Right?
horrible.
Is Yeah. What about eating? Like, for your meals. Like, yeah, I remember it used to be like you're in, you're out, you're getting yelled at the entire time, and you just didn't have much time to eat. What are
So
we doing now? Have we changed that a bit?
it is pretty much a 180 of that.
Okay.
So you get a minimum of 10 minutes from the time your butt hits the seat, which is a lot of time. We cannot restrict you from eating anything. So, the little dessert cabinets, people go buck wild on those things.
Dude, it's right there. It's sliced. It looks good. You just
Yeah.
pick it up and go.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have however many instructors' eyeballs at the snake pit just, watching you. But, yeah, so it's the chow hall is where, recuperate, reset, get ready for the next training iteration. That is what it is for. That is the intent. We do not yell at least at my unit, we do not yell at them when they're going through there. It may be like, hey, you're at attention, get those heels together, get both hands on the tray, safety kind of things. And in terms of efficiency moving through the line. But if you need to get more food, you get up, you do the proper procedures, you go back through the line, you get your second stuff, as long as you haven't burned your time. But like I said, it's a minimum of 10 minutes. There's no real
Jeez.
maximum.
Well,
As long as the
I
flight
don't.
moves through, we're good.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a bad thing, honestly,
No.
because I lost so much weight during basic training
Yep.
that, and I don't mean good weight. It was bad.
No.
It was bad weight I lost
Yeah.
because I left BMT, hopped on a bus and went over to Medina at the time, and straight into NDOC, and it was like, oh boy,
What have
I'm
I done?
yeah, I got some catching up to do. So
Yeah.
it's a good thing. I think the letting people eat is good. So
Well, I 100% agree. Big thing. So you'll see issues. People cramp up, especially in the summer. Cramps, sweating too much. Like we have what's called a hydration schedule, but it's hard to drink that much water, especially when it's lukewarm and basically tap water. It's filtered, but it's lukewarm. It's not ice cold, which everyone's used to. The good stuff.
yeah. But
So
if you don't know, like, because you've lived on soda or you've lived on Gatorade or like whatever, and you don't know to intake more salt,
yes,
while you're eating, like you just it's not a matter of like I'm neglecting my body. I don't know any better,
yeah.
because you're training people from all walks of life. So like, I don't know, man. Kudos to you guys, because it's a definite leadership thing that you guys are doing when you're taking 50 different people who don't know each other from all different backgrounds, and you're building and molding them into a cohesive unit. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, a lot of everyone's approach varies when it comes to like nutrition stuff. I sit them down. I'm like, hey, salt your food, drink water. They have Gatorade, drink it. All this stuff, because my goal as your military training instructor, and I tell them, is to get you trained so you can replace me. I want you to
Yeah.
be better than I am. I wasn't a great trainee, so I hope you're a great trainee. But it's one of those things. Like this is my objective. My objective is not to break you. My objective isn't to make you like quit. There's no bell. This isn't SEAL training. My goal is to train you. If you are ill, if you are broken, if you are unwell or unable to train, are we accomplishing our shared goal? And the answer is no. And it's like, sweet, salt your food, drink water, even if it's a little uncomfortable. I understand, 3/4 of a water bottle is not a lot, but, drink it and then PT your butt off. If you're not sweating anymore, that's not a good sign. Drink more water.
Yeah. All right. So, what's something that you've seen in BT, or what do you recommend people definitely do not do during BMT?
So my recommendation, and something that generally happens regardless, but it's better early, is to not think about yourself. The selfless trainee is generally the successful trainee. When you care more about the people who sleep to your left and right, or in front of you, or above you, because we do have bunk beds, that is when you start to see the cohesion really hit. The people who are caring more about the success of others are the ones who succeed. Those are the people who end up getting honor grad, and it's not because they're trying for it. It's because they're trying to make everyone else succeed. The like focus on self, and I tell my trainees this as well. Like, it's the first 2 letters on the second name tape, the one that's over the heart, is us. It's not me. It's not a me Air Force. It's an us Air Force for a reason. Don't try and lose a bunch of weight, because you'll see people try, especially female dorms. I had a female
You're going to
dorm.
lose enough weight as it is.
Yes. I had a female dorm my first cycle, and sir, we're trying to, it's summertime. We're trying to look at it. I'm like, a bunch of them were passing out. I'm just like, stop, eat food.
So
Like,
first off, you're in uniform. Nobody can see what you're looking like anyway. I get it. It's bikini season, but like
you're wearing
nobody.
this.
Yeah, you will have zero chance to wear a bikini there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were just, sir, we want to, prepare ourselves. And I was like, prepare in tech school.
God, you got to see some of the funniest shit. Oh man.
Yeah, it's so BMT is most definitely the funniest place. You're not allowed to laugh.
Yeah, I bet.
And it's
How many times have you had to walk out? You just military bearing, but you're about to lose it. And
it's happened a couple times. Sometimes you'll turn and adjust the campaign hat, and then you'll fix it real quick, and you're like, all right, we're back, all right.
yeah,
But
that's impressive, because I everybody that knows me knows that I have zero, like I live and all my emotions are through my face, and I laugh and smile, and I can't help it. It's just
yeah, it's some days it's rough, and like I'm a smiling person, and I think I for me that's like the young kids call it the aura, right? Because I'll be like smiling, trainee messes up, and I complete flat face, and I just start blowing them up, and then I turn back to my fellow instructor smiling again, and we're chatting it up, and they're just like, sir, is there something wrong with you? And I'm like,
yes,
yeah, you screwing up. Like, what do you mean?
you are what's wrong with me. Well, man, and there's a bunch of tough guys out there that say that, have you ever been punched in the face? Because all these tough guys out there and say that if I ever get yelled at by an MTI, just punch him in the face. Does that happen yet?
No, not yet. And I'm not a
Oh,
big guy either. I'm about 5'10". I'm a solid 177 soaking wet. So I'm not exactly, an intimidating presence. But no, I've yet to have anybody like square up on me or anything like that. Nobody really throws punches from what I've seen. A lot of the time, once you start yelling at them, that kind of leaves the body. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
if you've seen the Marvel movies, but like the Doctor Strange stuff where they like tap him and the soul leaves. That's
yeah,
I'd punch a MTI in the face.
yeah. It's wild. You hear all the tough guys. They always say that. And you're like, nah. I promise you, you
Yeah,
wouldn't. Because
it's
you're gonna be scared. You're gonna be nervous. You're gonna be like, that's what's gonna happen.
yeah, it's all the environment, and everybody's the couch quarterback kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's once you're in the environment, you're like, oh yeah, no.
Well, I'm gonna ask. These are one, two, three, four questions that we
Sure.
got from the Instagram story that I put out there. So, like I said, yeah, they're all right. But one of them was, do I get my phone? Because I guess I'm guessing that they've seen um, things from BMT from recruits. So I imagine that they get their phone at a certain week. So what does that look like?
Yes, so you'll get like initial calls, like similar to what you got when you arrived there. It was probably a payphone though.
I'm
Um,
okay.
yes, I have
There's a
arrived
script.
safely.
There used to be a
Yeah.
script.
I don't know if there's still a script, but it's essentially I've arrived safely. I'm not dead. I am at Joint Base San Antonio, Lackland for basic military training.
Yep.
And then, I will call you within 72 hours. And the 72-hour call this is my mailing address. A lot of the time they just take a picture and send it because it's easier.
Yeah.
And it'll be filled out, everything like that, flight number, squadron, all that good stuff. You'll get one in the third week of training. That is 15 minutes minimum. And that's basically like, hey, this is how I've progressed, all this stuff. Everybody ugly cries. It's always funny, like the tough ones who are like rock steady, and then they're, they get the tears coming down the mucus, everything like that. It's like, yeah, whatever, man. And then you'll get one fifth week of training. Any
Okay.
others on top of that are at the discretion of the instructor.
Oh, okay.
So
And the
aside
phones
from,
just get like locked up in a foot locker kind of thing?
yeah, so we have like little lockers for them specifically.
Okay.
Um, at least where I'm at. It may be different at other squadrons, but they are secured, yes. And then you'll also say, for example, you get recycled for performance, anything like that. You will get a phone call for that to, inform your family, hey, I'm not graduating on the date I originally told you. So we need
Yeah.
to adjust plans. We're not,
Change those plane tickets and hotels.
yeah, we're not evil. We're not going to make your family waste, however much money. So you'll have that opportunity to inform them. But you won't have it like, oh, on Sundays we get 2 hours of Instagram time. No, it's nothing like that. It's like very short, very to the point. Call your family, do your crying, give the phone back, hydrate up because we're about to, do some push-ups.
Yeah. Yeah. I was having this conversation with my daughter yesterday, actually, talking about being homesick. And I was like, hey, man, unless you have like lived with a lot of, coming and going, that kind of stuff, which, my kids have just from deployments and training schedule. But
Yeah.
there was always still some, my wife was always here as a rock, and so she was talking about homesickness. I was like, hey, like, I I know that you don't know this or have a hard time kind of seeing this, but like I was severely homesick as well.
Yeah.
Like, so everybody can talk big game until, just like you said, they get on that phone and they start talking to mom and dad or brother,
Yeah.
sister, or somebody, and then it's like, oh
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
it's
And
just the reality of it.
it's one of those things. The first 2 weeks is when you get a lot of because I said that first phone call's third week. So the first 2 weeks, sir, can I talk to you in the flight office with a wingman? It's like, yeah, absolutely. Bring him in. So, sir, I'm really struggling, all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, of course. That's kind of by design. And I normally say, who else is probably struggling? And who, sir? And I was like, probably one of the 51 other people that you live with. You are not alone in this struggle. Like, bond with them. You all have something in common. You came here with an opportunity and you're here together. Like, get to know each other. You'll find people who are like, oh, my wife, girlfriend, whoever does this. And it's like, oh, mine loves to do that too. And it's like, wow, did we just become BMT best friends? It's like a stepbrothers moment kind of thing. But it's a lot of it is, at least the way I guide it. There are some that are like legitimate where it's like, my mother is having health impacts. It's like, all right, cool. Let's, get the first sergeant involved. Let's,
Yeah.
see what we can do. But others where it's like, I'm struggling to adapt. It's of course you are. You're still new.
So
I was
that was
struggling.
actually one of the other questions that came
Oh,
up
I'm
was,
sorry.
hey, no, no, no. Well, is what happens if a family member dies while they're in BMT?
Yes. So your family can notify the Red Cross. They just need your information, which they have. They should have your squadron because you would have sent your mailing address. So they notify the Red Cross, hey, my son or daughter, spouse, what have you, is in this squadron, this flight. Their mother is, struggling and may not make it for the month, kind of thing. If it is a direct family member, they are able to do a pause in training. And then basically you'll get recycled out of the flight because, you're not going to be training. And then you'll be able to go to them depending on what the circumstance is. If they die and it's like your mother, majority of the time, I won't say majority, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, but they will try to get you there. If it's like a grandparent, that's where it starts to get a little more difficult unless said grandparent raised you.
Right. Yeah. It depends on it's not degrees of separation, but it's definitely like hey, you didn't live with your mom or dad. You
Correct.
actually were raised by your grandparents.
Yes.
Okay, then it's a little bit. Whereas, no, I saw my grandparents every 4 years, kind of thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, well,
It's like you
that's
just
not
don't want
really.
to be here. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
got it.
Um, in those circumstances, what I have done previously is like, hey, get your phone, call your family, uh, figure out when the funeral is, those kinds of things. You're going to like video call in, and nobody's going to disturb you for that time. Your wingman's going to be with you. Because for legal purposes, you need a wingman
Mhm.
at all times, with few exceptions. Your wingman's going to be with you. They're just going to be there silent studying, but you're going to be able to observe that ceremony, wake, funeral, those kinds of things. And then once it's done, you'll turn it off, and then we'll go back to business. And then if you need to talk to myself, the first sergeant, those kinds of things, chaplain, anything of that sort, let us know. But that's a big thing. It is, to what you said, degrees of separation of the
Yeah,
member.
yeah, for sure. And you got the folks got to out there got to realize that, you know, it's how many people you guys putting through constantly? Not your flight, but just the Air Force. Do you know that number?
So per week, it's roughly 16 flights on average between the line squadrons. So 52
Okay.
people, it's a little over 800. Sometimes you'll get less, sometimes you'll get more. Um, it's a lot of people. It's a
You got to
lot.
think like, and that's a week. Right? So these things happen. The Air Force has procedures for it. The Air
Oh yeah,
Force, this isn't like the first time this happens. It's not the Air Force's first time dealing with it. It may be the first time that a first sergeant or an MTI is dealing with it. But the Air Force has programs out there to help you. And like you said, you hit the Red Cross and things will just kind of start flowing.
yep.
So,
Yeah, the
um,
biggest thing is don't reach out to the unit, reach out to the Red Cross. Like that's the big, like we've had, my son's grandfather just passed away, and they're calling like our commander. It's like, okay, can you reach out to the Red Cross?
yeah.
Like,
Well, what's the most inspirational thing that you've seen? That was another question from Instagram.
most inspirational thing that I've
Mhm.
seen. Um, ooh, that's kind of a tough one. So for me, I input a lot of like classical stoicism into what I teach. And I had a trainee. I'm not going to name names, but he had a rough childhood, right? Um, and each of my lessons, I always input a little bit of classical stoicism. You cannot control the external factors. You control what's in here and what you do. We're in an environment where I control every external factor, mostly. How do you respond to it? But this trainee, had a tough upbringing. We saw potential in him, made him my dorm chief. He went from very timid, uncertain, all this different stuff, like pretty much your stereotypical young generation of how people view it today, what have you. How the generation before you viewed you, probably how the generation
Of
before
course.
me viewed me, all that stuff. And people are people at the end of the day. But he was very timid, uncertain, low confidence. End of the cycle, confident, super sure of himself, pretty much a completely changed man. And his family even came up to me and, they were like, "What did you do?" And I was just like, I trained him. I don't. So it's one of those things where the way different people internalize the lessons, I would say, is to me the most inspirational. I guess I haven't had a trainee who came in who was like, "Sir, I'm homeless." I have friends who have had those trainees, but I haven't
I
seen
was
the
gonna say
transformation.
we have gotten those DMs, and I know one of them that was
Okay,
homeless.
yeah,
Like, it's
there's
wild.
several. It's a lot
Mm,
more than you'd think. Folks come to BMT with like a trash bag, and
yeah,
it's like, "That's your civilian luggage item?" "Yes, sir. This is all I own." And it's like a toothbrush and a different set of clothes. It's like, very well, we'll make
you
it
change
happen.
their lives.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. You came here with an opportunity, just like everyone else. But I would say to me, from what I have seen, that was the most inspirational. Just the shift in this now airman's demeanor. It was
Oh,
like a
that's awesome.
complete 180. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, okay. So with that, what advice would you give to folks that are, and I'll just cast a wide net here, the folks that are thinking about joining, the folks that are, already are about to come see you here in the next. Well, actually, you guys just got people a couple days ago, so.
yeah, so I just picked up Saturday like
Oh
this.
yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
we're first week of training, so I was like, the biggest thing, uh, I would say, be coachable and realistically be selfless. Like, work together. Everything you do, it should be not for the benefit of you. The team is always going to be greater than the sum of its parts. You can be the most rock star individual. I promise you, if I get two average people, they're gonna beat you. Whether it's PT stuff. Hey, we're gonna do a push-up competition. Hey, guy one, rest. Guy two, do push-ups. Compete with him. You can be a PT stud. At some point, you're gonna hit muscle failure. Other guy's still gonna be fresh. We're gonna find a way. But it's one of those things where be coachable, be selfless. The best
Yeah,
trainees are always the ones who are worried about the success of the people around them. You find these people who are, good at rolling and folding the clothing drawer items, which is a big thing, that attention to detail, achieving the standard. I add on top of it communicating, because I teach them as pairs. And then, working together. I need to know that this random person that you have never met in your entire life, they're just, shaved head person number 6 who sleeps next to you. You're shaved head person number 5, can work together, even though you don't know each other's names. I need to know that can occur, because when you go into the Air Force, you don't get to choose who you work with.
nope,
You just get, hey, you're working with them. Mission needs to get done.
exactly right. Well, I'm gonna blow you up real quick before we close this out. If to the families out there and to potential recruits, but this is mainly to the families. You entrust the Air Force with your loved ones, right? And if Tech Sergeant Schmidt is not a great example, because you are, dude, you're a good example of
Oh,
this.
thank you.
Like I've loved talking to you right now. Not a great example of entrust us with your family members and we are going to take care of them. Like I don't know what else is. So dude, thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for continuing on in molding and mentoring the future generations of the Air Force, because there's a good chance that the folks that you're putting through, one of those is going to be the next Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, and the next, Ish Viegas, the next John Chapman, the next Sean Harvell, the next hero that's going to be out there. So thanks for that. Everybody else out there, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave us a review, check us out at onesready.com, and we'll see you there. Dude, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course.